Burma, or the Union of Myanmar as it's now been renamed. A devotedly Buddhist country which has been under the thumb of the military for the last 30 years. People still pray for democracy, but today their dream is still a long way off. In 1988, thousands of pro-democracy supporters in Burma take to the streets. They're protesting the military's one-party rule, which has monopolised the country's political arena since 1962. Their enthusiasm for reform turns to fear when the army opens fire on demonstrators. Thousands are reportedly shot dead. In 1989, military tribunals sentenced thousands more to long prison terms and even death. Aung San Suu Kyi, the then leader of the main opposition party, the National League for Democracy, was put under house arrest, where she remains today. In 1990, for the first time in 28 years, political opposition parties are permitted. The National League for Democracy wins a landslide victory in elections that year, but the military, led at the time by General Sol Mon, refuses to hand over power, and today they're still in charge. The recent change of leadership, which saw General Sol Mon step down and General Than Shwe replace him, has prompted observers to remark that the political situation here is easing. This is the first time in a long time that journalists have been allowed into the country. That in itself suggests that some rules are being relaxed. But when we got here, we saw a society in which people are afraid to speak out, and from which democracy is a long way off. The first sign of change came within days of the leadership transfer, the release of a number of political prisoners. One of the most prominent was former Premier U Nu. He was kept here under house arrest from December 1989 until April this year. He was Burma's last democratically elected Prime Minister and was ousted from power when the military took over in 1962. People still speak very highly of him in Burma, and many were the visitors who came to celebrate his release. But with the end of his detention comes the acknowledgement that at 85, his days in politics are over.
In my case, I could work up to 85 now, up till now. This is also a detention for the sake of the country, is also a work. Don't you think so? Yeah? Yes. And so, I have worked up to about 85. I had helped the country when I could. But now, because of my old age and because of my physical disabilities, I cannot. Not to help the country, I could not walk, even alone, in the streets.
Devout Buddhists, U Nu and his wife spend much of their day at prayer. He knows as an old man he's in no position to take a stand politically. But from a personal point of view, he made sure his release was unconditional.
This is my determination. So they know very well that if they come with the proposal that I should not do this, I should not do this, I should not speak this, I should not speak that, I will say, I will not accept these terms. You go away.
But we were told this is not the case for other political prisoners. Propaganda pictures like these, announcing the release of yet more detainees, appeared in the government's Working People's Daily several times during the week we stayed in Yangon. Opposition party members, or anyone whose sympathies lie away from the military, are forbidden to talk to foreigners. Newly released detainees must toe the military line for fear of ending up back here alongside prisoners such as these in the infamous insane jail. The silence of the people who still hanker for democracy means there are moments when it's possible to forget the shadow under which this Buddhist nation lives. Getting to the heart of the matter is more difficult. People are frozen with fear, bound by horrific tales of interrogation, detention and torture. The one person who agreed to talk to us about his 5 months' experience in jail as a pro-democracy supporter wouldn't even let us turn the lights on as we spoke down a back alley.
It's like fighting. Any fighting after, what is your democracy? What do you want? You can answer, I want democracy. Why you want democracy? You give me fighting.
But you don't have to take part in a demonstration to anger the military. The South China Morning Post foreign editor Richard Vines witnessed. He was watching a group of people dancing in the street in Yangon and he got talking to a young student. An innocent conversation based on trivia. Then, without warning, the student was grabbed by police.
The young man began protesting and the policeman hit him in front of me and the whole crowd and then handcuffed him and took him away. And again, I just didn't know what to do and then decided to follow. Finally found myself inside the police station and they began questioning me. The young man was in the room, but they began questioning me. Why are you here? Who brought you to this police station? Why are you in Burma? And I was quite frightened, frankly, because I'd already seen them hit somebody on the street and I was worried I might be detained myself. And after about 5 minutes of questioning, the police said I could go, and I turned round and the young man had already been removed from the room and I left.
Billboards such as this one are a continual reminder for local citizens to toe the line. Military presence isn't so obvious on the streets, but you can be sure if there's not a soldier around, there'll certainly be a so-called informer. They form a network which ensures the military government knows everything that's going on. We too were victims of the spies, many of whom were employed as watchdogs outside the hotel we were staying in. This blue car, which was left in the hotel car park when not in use, followed us most days. The network is hardly sophisticated. As we discovered, the number of people working for the military often made up for the lack of technology. 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, we arrived at a jetty, ready to get a boat and take a few pictures of the river. The men from the blue car were in tow, but when we got on the boat, they stayed on the shore. There must have been a couple of hundred people aboard, and as the only foreigners, we stood out. But that didn't explain how 2 plainclothes secret policemen already knew who we were.
Oh, they're good. You see, they have your name already. Karen. This is Karen Haynes. This is our names here.
Officially, we could only film scenic shots and pictures of Burma's first national sports festival, the event which had inspired the military government to invite Asian-based journalists to the country. But even here, we ran into controversy at a volleyball game for the disabled. Employees from the Ministry of Defence playing employees from the Ministry of Welfare. Outside, we spoke to the man wearing the number 12 shirt, a former soldier. He told us he'd lost his leg when he accidentally stood on a mine. At this point, an official intervened. There were, he said, many road accidents in Yangon, and that's how these men had lost their limbs. Lim Song-leung, a businessman of Chinese origin, is one of the few prepared to lay it on the line. Safe in the knowledge that he's a prominent and leading member of the Chinese community in Yangon, he points his finger at the military as the instigators of fear.
还有一个王牌啊，大家不清楚。这个王牌就是军队嘛，军队不在你手里，你怎么样去搞宣传啊？你说他已经失败了，不会失败，宣传在他手里，什么时候他宣传还在他手里？
Fear of the army means anyone still involved in the fight for democracy is having to work outside the country, mainly here in Bangkok. Many, bearing the scars of armed conflict, fled to Thailand in fear of their lives. Most went immediately after the 1988 uprising. Others have arrived more recently.
The new who are participating there. We know about the military MIs, the military intelligence we know very well. So if we stay there, they will come arrest, it's sure. That's why we fled to Bora as soon as possible and to come and stay in a liberated area. Instead of arrested, we can do many things in a liberated area.
Close observers of what's going on in Burma, the activists are sceptical about the recent change of leadership. They say the replacement of General Solmon by General Than Shwe is purely for show.
This is just to progress any their image because they lost in politically or nationally. They are under the pressure of all the country or UN also. Just they want to improve a little bit, just to check the people, all the world also. They want to prolong the powers.
It's no wonder people would rather go about their daily lives and forget there was once a time when Burmese citizens lived in a democratic society. Opposition parties have been deregistered, and their members say there's not even an underground opposition movement. Yangon University has been shut for a large part of the last 4 years. The Parliament building has been empty since the 1990 elections, and Aung San Suu Kyi is still being detained in the compound behind this barricade, although the military did recently allow her British husband Michael Aris to visit.
The offer was repeatedly made to release her if she went into exile. She never even discussed the matter because she says it is not negotiable.
But it's she who remains the figure much of the country looks towards as a symbol of democracy.
When she thinks of her, you need not think of the opposition parties. Opposition party, as a matter of fact, do not exist because they are lifeless. They don't have life. She is not like this. If the government allows him to vote for an election, I think she will sweep the polls.
It's precisely for this reason the military hasn't freed her. For those still pining for democracy in Burma, at the moment there's little else to cling on to. Before the military took over in 1962, Burma was considered a wealthy country, made rich by exploitation of its abundant natural resources. But over the last 30 years, it's been led into financial ruin, prompting the United Nations to label it in 1987 a least developed country. Outwardly, it appears the nation is gradually beginning to improve again. There are, for example, significantly more cars on the road than there were 10 years ago. New settlements, such as Dagon Satellite Town, which will eventually house more than 32,000 families, have sprung up on the periphery of Yangon. And infrastructure has improved too. But at what cost? To pay for its ambitious new projects, the government simply printed more money. This, in turn, has resulted in rapid inflation. The inflation rate has recently decreased, but official estimates still put it at 30%. For many people, it's all they can do to scratch a living, let alone pay for proper medical care. For the once rich and successful, like the inhabitants of this house, the financial losses started in 1962, when the military government nationalised all private businesses. At the time, this family were textile traders.
We got our silk house, our big shop in Scott Market, you see, in Boju Market. Government in 1962, our enterprise is also nationalized. All shops are nationalized.
Ufo Myint worked for the government for a while, but now he strives after what everyone else is looking for: hard foreign currency.
We got our house and we let the house to foreigners. We got some dollars, you see. With this dollar we buy car, you see, and resell it. That's our business.
The entrepreneurial spirit runs high in Burma, albeit in a basic way. And no one is trying harder to get US dollars than the government-run businesses and hotels. Believe it or not, a room like this costs $80 a night. A wedding reception at the same hotel would set you back 50,000 jets. That's more than $8,000 officially, and around $550 if you changed your money on the black market. Either way, there are few people in Burma who could afford to lay out so much cash. This woman, who lives in a village a short way out of Yangon, is more typical. She told us her extended family of 11 works several stores like this one, selling foodstuffs and household items. Each operation brings in around 150 jets a month. That's around $25 at the official rate. In the centre of Yangon is Chinatown, where by Burmese standards the residents fare reasonably well. Here too, people lost their businesses to the nationalisation programme in the 60s. But the families we talked to here all claim to be earning well above the 450 jets, which we were told by government officials is the minimum wage. Jimmy Wong says he spends half his 2,000 jet salary on food and living expenses. He was happy for us to visit his house, but it took a while to persuade his family to let us film them eating dinner. They were embarrassed to have what they said were so few dishes on the table. But sometimes the goods just aren't available to buy. Petrol, for example, is rationed. Drivers are only allowed to purchase 3 gallons worth every 2 weeks. This taxi driver told us when he runs out, he has to buy from other drivers who have petrol left over from their allowance. But this might be at 10 times the official price. For other goods, be they medical or everyday household items, Burma looks to the black market. Mingalasay is known as Burma's largest wholesale market. It's also known as one of the country's flourishing black markets. Here, legitimate goods are mixed in with products brought across the border from China and Thailand. Local residents say the government knows what's going on here, but chooses to ignore it. How many goods in this market are smuggled?
I think it's only a small part, not much more. About maybe 25% are smuggled.
What sort of goods are smuggled? What type of products?
I think we cannot put them into each category because all the things can be smuggled.
There's no way of knowing which goods have been smuggled into the country and which ones have had import duties paid on them. In any case, no one minds as long as the products are available. The privileged, however, have access to goods through the tourist store. Here, only foreign travellers, embassy staff, United Nations personnel and employees of companies holding foreign exchange accounts may buy from the shop. Most goods on sale are from the West. Rarities such as Scotch whisky and cosmetics, not generally available in ordinary shops. Payment is, of course, in dollars. In an attempt to boost the country's flagging reserves, the government is trying to encourage foreign investment. This Hong Kong-backed garment factory is one of 38 foreign business ventures the government has said yes to since 1988. Su Wing is the factory's production coordinator. He says the low wages in Burma mean there are high profits to be made. Yet he warns first you have to cope with the problem of inexperienced workers.
When we start the factory, we have problem to teach them how to sew. Their workmanship is only 80% compared with our Hong Kong workmanship.
Hong Kong businessman Kenneth Cheung has also put money into a garment factory in Burma. He says in the long term it's a good investment, but people should be aware of the drawbacks too.
First of all, I have to point out, we are doing business with Burma. We are not sleeping well every single night. That means from time to time we are aware of the situation in Burma. Because of '88, it was one time riot circumstance in Rangoon. That was the time our factory was suspended and all of our staffs moved back to Hong Kong.
Opponents of the military say such businessmen have betrayed the people of Burma by doing business with the government, which has such a poor human rights record. Activists are calling on the international community to put pressure on the military to change its ways. They claim such business transactions are detrimental to ordinary civilians.
They have no money for the outside country, so they open the foreign investments. Also, they welcome many companies, such as for logging, concessions, or fishery, and some oil companies. At that time, they got much money, but they did not use this money for the people. They used for the power to stay longer and longer. So they bought weapons and they kill the students, and also they torture the civilians. Also they kill the minorities.
The government, however, now it's begun its open door policy, is determined to see it flourish. It's been reported that the purchase of largely military equipment has seen the country's reserves drop from more than $1 billion to less than 100 million. In the face of this, the government has to put on a brave face.
Well, I'm quite confident that, looking at the present situation, there are quite a number of applications on the pipeline, and we are quite confident that more investors will be coming in, and we expect to have about 1,000 million kyats in a year of foreign investment.
In a country where 3 decades ago malnutrition was virtually unheard of, but where now beggars are a common sight, this may well be a drop in the ocean. This is a country where children who should be at school are vital wage earners. While the rest of Asia is booming, Burma is still trying to get back where it was 30 years ago.